UAS and advanced air mobility. His work has been acknowledged by Commercial UAV Expo and Interdrone, who recognized him as one of the top visionaries for uncrewed aircraft systems. And Paul will be talking with us today about UAS imagery and photogrammetric 3D models. You're up.
Okay, hope everybody's doing good. I see lots of smiles, so let's have some fun. And I'd say like everybody in this room is one of the top drone visionaries, so we're all in this together. So with that, I'm going to talk about this. Originally, Kevin was going to do it, and he couldn't make it, so I'm going to be replacing him on it. But what I want to really talk about here is transforming our data. What do we do with the data? I know we're all been talking about we're collecting all this data with UAS. We're doing all these awesome things with it. We're using AI, we're using machine learning. But what else can we do? I'm a big advocate on taking the data and seeing how we can transform it and what are these uses for it. How can everybody in the DOT or other agencies benefit from the data? So we collect it for survey. We can take it into design. We can use it for incident management. We can use it for historical pieces. But let's talk about some of the visualization. I got a passion for some of that as well with the Viz pieces specifically. Used to run the visualization team at UDOT years ago, back in 2003. I'm starting to date myself a little bit. When all the tools were brand new, we're trying to use game engines and other items to get it in, and the tools weren't where they're at today. So with that, it's exciting how that's evolved and how it's changed and how UAS can play a critical part in that. So as we all know, some of these bullet points in here, we know that what it's good for, right? You got large areas, places that are really difficult to get into. And really what I want to get into is some of those details of actually creating these and then the looks. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I think we always think about that. So I like to have a lot of videos for this. So when we're looking at these things, if I go back in history a little bit in time, when I was trying to capture some of these photo matches in the day or to do these 3D models, I'd have to go out there and get creative. I didn't have the means for a lot of these projects to get a helicopter. So now that we have UAS, it's so easy to get these views that you're seeing, and then I'll show you kind of transforming them here. But what I'd have to do for like bridges like these, I'd never get this shot. So I'd have to get creative. I'd hang off the bridges. I'd try and get creative on this edge of slopes. I'd put tripods out there with cameras. And that the problem in those days with it was I needed to be able to have a coordinate where that camera was and then also have tie points tied in on the ground around it. So some of the times it was pretty sketchy as a young kid and just like, yeah, let's go for it. Let's see what happens and hopefully I don't kill myself doing this. So with these new tools, as you guys well know, how we're able to just get this different perspective, get close, and it's cheap. When I'd have to hire a helicopter back then, we're talking $3,000 usually for a project, sometimes more, depending on the length of them. Now we can purchase a drone that can do that for half. So I'm preaching to the choir here. So let's kind of talk in kind of some detail here on these different pieces. So when you're taking these, this one right here, I guess it's not going on my video, that's okay. Let's just switch to the next one on it. But when we're talking about some of these pieces, right, you get the view, and it's easy to talk about a project or give somebody 2D plan sheets. Let me ask this question. Has anybody went to a public hearing or public meeting with your 2D plan set, and you're used to looking at plan sets, and you just assume everybody else can as well? And you get to the public, and you're explaining the project to them, and they're nodding, and you can kind of see their eyes are glassed over. And they don't want to act like they don't understand, so they just say, oh yeah, I get it. But then you get done with it, and they're like, oh, hell no, this project's not going to happen because it's horrible. Even though they sat with you and nodded their head, and they said, oh yeah, we understand, and everything's great. I went through that many times, but then when you do a visualization like this, it clicks. And then instead of being that glossy-eyed, they're like, oh, I understand it. And then you can have critical feedback from them. And they say, oh, wait a minute, I get this. But here's what I like about it, or here's what I may not like about it. So you can have a more constructive conversation regarding the data itself. And that's kind of how these corridors go. If I was to be on the ground trying to do a photo match, I'd do multiple angles and try and explain it and do the best I could. But as you can see, those aerial views are, let me see if I can go back here again. See if it's gonna work on the video. When you get this aerial view, suddenly you see it from this new perspective. Then you can stretch it around, get animation in there, and really show what it looks like. It was really interesting for me when you take this to somebody and you could say, when you got it, their whole city, which I'll show in just a second here, and they're like, okay, this is what the project's gonna look like, but how does it impact me? What does it look like from my house? And you can take them to their house and show them exactly what it's gonna look like. And then again, get that constructive feedback. Sometimes it's not always what you wanna hear. You think you got the best project in the world, and they're like, yeah, I don't really like that. And here's why. But other times they're like, okay, I can deal with this. This will be okay. One of the projects that we've done, we had a nice road coming in to help with the traffic. It was all congested, and something came up that I never even thought about. So it was a little higher from the bridge. Their houses was down lower. And their biggest concern was, people are gonna see in my windows. I'm like, oh, I never even thought about that. So they're anticipating someone going 50 miles an hour looking in their window. I don't think it was quite realistic, but it was what it was. So something you gotta address. So as we look at these, did it switch over on me? Yeah, here we go. So you're wondering kind of how we do this. So as I come back, you kind of see it's all photo match. So you take your UAS, you're able to fly and get the data, right? But how do we match that to design? And that's what I want to show. So with that, you guys are setting ground control points and other things, so you need to be able to know where they're at. So one of the software solutions you can use is like Synthesize, and that's what was here, and then you can take it into 3ds Max as well. But if you look at this one, you can see the different photo match points. So you can match those with the 3D coordinates themselves. And then suddenly, instead of just having a nice video picture, you're taking it in there, and then you can match your design exactly. So that was the hardest thing for me in the past with some of those cameras and other things, because when I'd take it with a normal camera and I'd put a different lens, I'd have to know the focal length, I'd need to know where the target location was, and everything else. But this new software makes it relatively easy to do some of this. So you can see each of those points to match it, and suddenly we can overlay the design and then see what it is. The other really cool thing about this as well that we found is not just using it as a public engagement tool, but actually for design. When we're building these in 3D and we've got the data of the actual ground around it, we're finding problems that would have came up in construction that we caught early on, so we can fix it then and not have to worry about it with the change order later on. So it's quite powerful that way. And this just kind of shows these identified points like I talked about. You've seen them there on the ground match. So each one's an XYZ coordinate. You match it in there, then you can match that design data. And that's kind of the workflow for how that works. So with that, something to think about when you are is make sure that you're using the same coordinate systems that you have in your CAD, along with what you're collecting on the ground in your survey. I've seen many times that you get a surveyor will collect it in one coordinate system, and then you try and take it in design, it's another one. Or if you get into the bigger problem, they collected it in US survey feet, and somebody set up the CAD file in international survey feet. So something to think about in your workflow as you're trying to get these to match. That's how it can go, but it's a quite powerful tool, and I'll show you just some cool examples of this. Here's another one, just kind of a promotional video, and this is for California high-speed rail coming into San Francisco. And right there, again, you get your UAS, you can fly those camera paths, you put a 3D model into it, and then you can take it into different software packages. This one was 3D Studio Max, and it's just kind of cool what you can do. And I'll play this one again because I know they kind of go fast, but it's the train that's all 3D. So we animated the train in 3D, the tracks, and it's the real city that's behind it. It's right in the environment of what you're seeing. With some of the new tools as well, it's amazing what you can do. If you got some of your VR goggles, I know JD's played around with some of those, and your HoloLens, I know quite a few states are doing those. The other piece you can do with this is take those 3D models that you collect with your UAS, make it an awesome 3D model, bring it into your office, and put those on. And then suddenly, I'm not standing out on the highway with 80-mile-an-hour traffic going next to me, or in Utah, the speed limit's 80, but people are going 90 or 100. And what are they doing? This is my cell phone, and they're looking at their cell phone as they're coming by. So you have that safeness, and you still can see the data that you need to because you have a 3D model. And not only that, you could bring it in anywhere. And like Ryan was showing yesterday, think about the remote immersiveness of that. You put on some goggles, you've got your drone far away, or your UAS, and then suddenly you can immerse yourself in the environment and be there with these VR goggles. The technology's, not all the way polished. It's getting better. Sometimes people get motion sick with it, but it's cool what you can do. Even with the DJI goggles, we got it for our bridge inspectors, and they loved it. But you had to have the right person on the sticks, or else, or maybe not if you didn't like the person that was watching. So you can make them sick really quick. But that's another tool for it. So with that, these are just some more examples. If you're wondering, like this last one, this one is kind of an oblique mission. So with it, instead of flying nadir or straight down, what we do is kind of fly oblique on some of these. And this one was 5 separate gridded passes to capture the photo. Okay, we had the overlap like you normally would. And then ultimately you take that 3D model, okay? And this one was done in context capture and then also site scan in Pix4D. So to take all that 3D data, bring it in and make data-informed decisions is really where this kind of gets about. So not just having the pretty picture, because everybody says, oh, it's just a toy, it's this, that. But when you show them the real data behind it and how it improves your workflow, that's where you start seeing those wins. And that's, again, where we've seen, if you take this up to your senior leadership and say, look what we've done with this data, and here's how you can use it as a public engagement tool, as a design tool, as a decision-making tool, and then suddenly it clicks for them, and then it helps you get the budget that you need. All right, oops. So with that, these are just some different examples, as I said. Some of the things to kind of think about on these is there's different ways to do it, different drones, different cameras, but I like to tell people you don't always have to spend a lot of money to get this going. Even with the Viz stuff, the tools are getting better, they're getting cheaper, they're getting easier to use. 3ds Max, when I'd have to train somebody on that, clear back in 2004, 2005, it was 6 months before I could get them up and running. Today, it's getting better. You can take things from Civil 3D right into 3ds Max today, and then into some of these other tools. Your gaming engines are another example of that as well. Take people into the whole environment, not just one project, but the whole city. And when you can do that, like I'd mentioned, take them to their doorstep, see what it's from here. If you've got your legislature in the room and they want to see what it looks like from their perspective, and they can fly around and see it, it's all there. The citywide data that we have available today is just fantastic. And then we can supplement that with the UAS, fly that for a more higher resolution ground sampling distance. And then even with other tools, take your LiDAR and other things and go inside the building. So say like you're trying to, I know a lot of people are into advanced air mobility. Think of the vertiports, something you can take into there, create that whole experience. You're flying in, you're coming down, you're going into the vertiport. You can not only see that beautiful picture, but also understand the pathing around that. Or even looking at your infrastructure for the DOT. Where can I place these things? Where can I put them? Where does it make the most sense? So a lot of this new technology that's coming, UAS I think is going to be a key component for collecting that data. So here's just another kind of video to kind of show the steps in creating a 3D model. So, and then this one right here is just a series of images taken of a bridge. And then this one's processed through context capture. So I know I'm mentioning a lot of different tools. There's so many out there. I mentioned Autodesk, I've mentioned Bentley. I know they're both in the room, but there's some free ones out there too. I don't know if my video's playing or not on this, but that's okay. Now it's gone. So let's play, but you can kind of see, you get your images, you'll tag it, you've got coordinates again like I described. You'll put it all together and then create this full 3D model that you can take into and create a full visualization. So you're kind of seeing the point cloud here, and then you can kind of go in and actually put in the design data and overlay it as well. So. And I know most of you have done this, so I don't want to bore people that are used to doing creating the point clouds from here. But the point is, and I made this before, is we've got data that we've never had before. And really figure out what you can do with that. Find these new uses that are out there. Sometimes we really need to just think outside the box. And by getting together and collaborating like we are here, I think that's how we can do that. See what people are doing, how it works, and what doesn't. And here's another just example. So this is an LRT station. Can insert into kind of a 3D photogrammetric context model. So, and if you're wondering, the graphics are getting so good today. The one with the silver roof is the 3D model in here. Sometimes you can't tell. With all the ray tracing and other technologies that's going into the rendering and the processing power that we have, it's photorealistic, and it's hard to tell the difference on some of these. All right. Just some other examples of some of these that I want to show you, but here you can kind of see what's been put in there, what's been transplanted. And I think I heard somebody talking about, can you do phasing for construction? And absolutely. And again, that kind of goes into play too, not just in the design. What works? Does my design actually fit and work? But the phasing itself, does it actually work? Does the pathing work? What problems are we going to have? How can we set up our traffic control? And you can do this all in 3D with that UAS data as a background to see the environment as it is, not how you perceived it to be from your design before. And here's just another rail yard. This one's in downtown Denver. And what this one's being used for is a redevelopment planning. And I'm pretty sure everybody in here uses Google Earth, but as I was mentioning before, some of these city scale models that you can get, we've got full cities like LA, San Francisco, we've got a whole handful of them. And some of them, are a little less resolution, some are higher. We've got some that are 3 centimeter data of the entire city, and it's fantastic. And then again, you can take your UAS and fly that and get, 1 inch or less. Use your LiDAR data that you're seeing as well and combine all that into these 3D models. And here's just another example. This one's an initial 3D solution for that rail yard too. So if you're wondering, kind of the green dots are all the different photo positions of what was captured. But I think most of you have done mapping, so I'm not going to bore you. Those that haven't, you can kind of see how many photos go into that. And those that haven't flown these automated missions, I've had people ask me, they're like, do I have to actually click the camera on each one of those? No, you don't. It's all automated today. It's easy. You put in your flight lines, you put in your overlap, you tell it what angle you want your camera to be, and let it go. All right. So with that, that's kind of my last slide here, just kind of showing that city scale model that I was talking about and what you can do with those. But any questions you guys have? I want to make sure I left some time for questions. What's the cost? That is a good question. Depends on the scale, right? Obviously. But and the design involved. If you've already got the design created and you just want to put into this, it's very low cost. If you're looking to do like a city scale model, the ones that we already have completed are not too bad on the price. If we still need to fly it, then we can. Again, the city scale models, we still do with helicopters at times and work with a company to do that, but it depends on what you need. If it's a smaller area, obviously UAS, but what I'm a proponent of is sometimes you guys already have the tools to do this. If you've already got UAS, obviously the city scales may not, but some of the smaller areas certainly. Any other questions? Yeah. For noise? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't name the client that we've done, but we did some noise studies for UAS for communities in Australia. So to see how that is, and it's what we found too is on the noise side, You can visualize it and see where it's going to go, but we're finding that people, it's not just the decibel level, but it's also the perception of that noise, how it sounds. So we've done also things with that too, to say, what level are you okay with? And what we found also too is, if we're getting into noise, kind of going in a sidebar, but this is on the AM package delivery. If you don't engage the community, and I think you guys probably all know this, like I talked before, things don't work out so well. They get annoyed by it. They don't understand the benefits that it arises for them. So if you take that first and say, we're going to have this new tool coming, here's the benefits that it can have for you or others in your community, and then it goes a little bit better than if suddenly they're just tearing drones over their head and they don't understand what it's about. And it's kind of like with sirens, right? If you hear a siren, you know, you get out of the way, right? If you know one of those UAS is possibly saving somebody's life, it's a little easier to accept. That could be one of your family members, or maybe it's you one day. It's one of the defibrillators or something else that may be on them. So, but I don't want to go too off topic on you, but happy to have a conversation again. Any other questions? Okay, fantastic. Thanks, everyone.